Welcome back to Local SEO Tactics, where we help you learn tips and tricks to get your business found online. I'm your host, Jesse Dolan, here with Bob Brennan.
Howdy.
And this week, we're going to be revisiting one of our favorite topics, Google My Business, and diving into how to craft and kind of some reasons behind why you do your Google My Business description a certain way. Before we get into that, we want to mention a couple things. One, we'd love to hear from you. On our last episode, episode number 50, we played our first recorded message from Evelyn coming in through this, which is the questions area of our website. We'd love to hear from everybody else. Go out to localseotactics.com/questions and let us know what's on your mind. If there's a challenge you're having, you're hitting your head against the wall on something and you want to ask maybe for some help or some guidance. If you have something kind of just general, you're looking for an opinion, or if you want to stir the pot and come up with something that you want to just kind of debate, whatever the heck it is, if it's something that you'd like to get on the show and get us talking about, we'd love to hear it. localseotactics.com/questions, or go down in the footer on any page. There's a link for submit a question. Click on that. If we do use your question on the show, we're going to send you a t-shirt. So check it out. Let us know. And then also our free instant SEO audit tool. You can check out your website, a competitor's website, anybody's website as many times as you want. Plug in your domain, plug in a keyword, and it's going to churn for about a minute or so, and it's going to give you back a PDF report of all the good, bad, and ugly on your website or your competitor's site if you're doing this for a competitor. And it's got a great punch list of all the things you need to fix. Breaks them out into like critical and warning, type deal, so you know what to attack and how to prioritize it. In a lot of aspects for SEO on your website. So if you haven't done that yet, check it out. It's a great tool. A lot of people will run that, do some fixes, run it again, just kind of before and after score. And as you make changes to your website, upload new pages, things like that, any major change. So not Intrix.com. You can get there at Intrix.com too. That's the old website. Localseotactics.com. Free instant SEO audit, yellow button, top right corner. Check that out. All right, let's get into it here today. So we're talking about Google My Business descriptions. And first, before we get into some of the optimizations and approaches, just reset so everybody knows, what we're talking about. If you're new to this show, Google My Business is something that we promote every few episodes because we're talking local SEO here.
Yep.
And you shouldn't even be thinking local SEO if you don't have a Google My Business listing for your business or for all of your business locations if you're a multi-location business. We'll link in the show notes to some of our previous episodes, our how to set it up, how to do multi-location, how to do some different research. We've got a lot of topics on it, and we'll list some of the most popular ones in the show notes for this if you need a primer and where to go. One of the main features within the Google My Business listing is your ability to write a description about your business. And kind of some of the nuts and bolts on that is it's 750 characters, so it's kind of a good sized paragraph that you can type up about your business. And this isn't something that's really shown to human beings a lot. If you just do a Google search, everybody kind of knows the map pack, but just to reset here, if you do a Google search for, auto repair or some kind of local service in your neck of the woods, you're going to see usually some ads at the top, right? Like pay-per-click ads at the top. And then you're going to be presented with the map section with sometimes it'll say ABC. Sometimes it'll just have the 3 listings in there, maybe a sponsored or a paid listing as well. And then have a map underneath it, kind of showing where these businesses are located on there. That's what we're talking about, businesses that are found in that. So, and those are the Google My Business listings, and you have your regular search results underneath that. So we're talking about your Google My Business listing that it's going to show up in that 3-pack or that map pack. Now, when you do a search and you see those 3 listings, you're usually just seeing like the name of the business, maybe some information about their review score, aggregate rating, and sometimes like a snippet of text that'll pull out from maybe a review, maybe from your website content, depending on what you searched for. And this doesn't happen all the time, but sometimes you'll see that and they'll like bold certain words, if it's related to your search. And one of the areas you can sometimes get some information to pop onto your GMB listing in those searches is from your Google My Business description. Sometimes from your posts, sometimes from your reviews. There's no real rhyme or reason that any of us, normal people understand that right. Google knows what they're doing there and when they choose what they choose. But we're no experts to give you advice on how and when it pulls from certain areas, but we do know what areas it pulls from. So one of those areas is your Google My Business description. So number one, it's important for that, right? Number two, it's also kind of one of the most intensive areas, I guess, to say it like that, where you can put input information in your GMB or Google My Business listing. If you think about like your business name, address, phone number, kind of some of the standard areas, those are just very small fields. In this Google My Business description area, Google's given you the ability to input a large paragraph, 750 characters of information to describe your business. So my point on this is, generally speaking, this isn't seen by people, but it's definitely seen and absorbed and filed away by Google, right? And they draw a lot of relevancy and information about what you are and what you offer based on this description. So within that, and actually as a interesting nugget, so we're recording this episode here. It's March 2nd, 2020. And I want to say it was like 3 weeks ago, somewhere a little after Valentine's Day, Google came out real quick and they did an update on their GMB kind of guidelines and best practices for how to set up a GMB listing. And they updated it saying something to the effect of, if you want to be found for your service in your city, you should make sure you mention your city in your GMB description.
Okay.
Which instantly, SEOs in the industry were like, oh my God, Google just basically said putting keywords into your GMB description impacts your ranking. And Google's usually pretty darn careful about not giving direct signals and feedback for what does and doesn't impact your ranking, because according to Google, anything you do to manipulate said ranking is outside of the terms of service, right? So everybody was kind of like, oh, gasp, look what they just did. I think it was like 3 days later, they removed it and changed it back, saying, okay, that was a mistake to say it in that way. But at the end of the day, it resonates and it really does hold true. Everybody's kind of been saying that for forever. Like, make sure you're putting certain keywords and things like that in your GMB description, because it's a major area for Google to understand what you do. So that's the kind of the quick background on what this is and what we're talking about. Now we're going to get into how to manipulate it, really, right? And how to use it to your advantage. So I'm going to kind of walk through some real quick best practices for it. And then Bob's going to kind of challenge us for maybe how to expand outside of that and things like that. So I'll quit talking here in a second. But basically what you want to do is make sure, kind of like your website, if you're sitting there, you should already probably have a website with understanding what city you're in, what cities you serve, if you go on site to customers, or what cities you want to pull customers from, if you're marketing in a certain area. You should also know what products and services you have to offer, maybe what brands, you represent for manufacturers, things like that. Or if, let's say if you're in auto repair, what brands you want to repair, right? Maybe you want to do semi-trucks, maybe you don't, you want to do cars, So you should kind of have this information on your website, or have a darn good idea of it in your head either way. You want to try to distill that stuff down into 750 characters to communicate it all. You don't have an infinite amount of space. Also, 750 characters is not small either. That's going to be multiple sentences or a good sized paragraph. But you want to craft this in a way that's not just mashing keywords in there. These have to be, readable. Right. Google's smart enough now to know if it's just a bunch of mumbo jumbo or one 750 character sentence ain't going to do it. Like Bob and I were just talking before we hit record here. You can add commas. You can have run-on sentences. It's fine as long as it's coherent and it makes sense.
Right.
You can't just randomly mash stuff in there. One other thing we should say too is back to human beings reading this. When you do a search for something, I forgot to mention this, so I got to rewind for a quick second. You'll see the map pack, right? The 3-pack like we talk about. Sometimes you'll see the knowledge panel off to the right-hand side on your search engine results page. And that's usually in lieu of the 3-pack, right? If for some reason, Google, you're just so authoritative, or the competition is so low in your area, there's no 3-pack. They're not going to show that. They're just going to show one GMB that'll be off to the side in what they refer to as the knowledge panel. That's when you actually get an expanded view of your Google My Business information. It'll show some of the products and services, maybe some photos, and it'll show you the first about 200 characters or so of your GMB description further down the page, but it's on there. And as far as I'm aware, that's kind of the only way we are presented that information from Google. Now, if you're in the 3-pack doing a search, if you click on a result in the 3-pack, then you'll see more information, right, about that business. But to be clear, like on an upfront, is anybody going to see this when they're searching Google? That's really the only way the public gets exposed to this.
Is that knowledge panel?
Is that knowledge panel. And I say that with some importance, knowing that if the first 200 characters or so is really the only ones that are ever going to be shown directly by Google without somebody taking another action by clicking on your GMB or something, to wait or give priority to kind of those first 200 characters, or the first 1/3 roughly of your 750 characters, whether that be from a user conversion standpoint of, I want to see that word in there to trigger me to take action, right? Whether it be best in city or, cheapest around or whatever it is, or also for the SEO value. We always say left to right, top to bottom. It's kind of the Western hemisphere convention here for how to read things. And likewise, the Googlebot kind of looks at it in the same way. So wrapping that up, use your GMB description wisely. Make sure your keywords are in there. Make sure your cities that you serve or that you want to pull service from are in there, and try to intentionally put your most important things in that first third. So
I'm not trying to trip you up.
Yeah.
So we kind of ran across this in this particular market. So Conveyor Systems Denver, for instance, this person occupied the knowledge panel. But then if you just type in Conveyors Denver, there was a 3-pack.
Okay.
So two subtle, two different searches.
But not that different.
Not that different.
Yep.
And one occupied the knowledge panel and the other didn't.
Yeah.
Any ideas or any guesses of why one might have over the other?
Yeah, we don't have to share, but without getting specific into those, if the search that triggered the knowledge panel was kind of more of an exact match to their name, that would be something that I've seen.
Makes sense. Yeah.
Okay, is that true for this one without getting into the name? Or?
Yeah, a little bit. It has the word conveying systems.
Okay,
no, not conveyor systems.
Not exactly then.
It's not an exact match, and then there's a name. There's another what would you call it? Verb in front of it.
Okay,
but it's basically, it's got not an exact match, and that can be hit and miss, right? I mean, you can intentionally try to do it, but
that's a great point. Everybody listen out there, you can Google, how to own the knowledge panel or how to dominate the knowledge panel. There's lots of resources out there for tactics to do that. At the end of the day, it is your GMB that's showing. And to your question, Bob, I think it comes down to, again, matching the relevancy and authority of what you're searching for to what those GMB options are. So if somebody's more of an exact an exact GMB name match, and then the inverse is also true. If Google's showing the 3-pack, we've seen this before, examples in previous episodes, like for cell phone repair. In a market that's weak for cell phone repair stores, we've seen auto repair shops pop into that 3-pack, right?
Yeah, that's true.
Because they don't have the whole phrase, right? Like cell phone repair. Yeah. Well, they do repair. These people are popular for repair, so we'll throw them up there.
So smaller markets are going to see that kind of
or smaller markets, yes, but more of kind of my point is if there's businesses that seem like they're related to your search, because if your search was maybe a little ambiguous or a little, short tail, like just a word or two, not long tail, like a 5-word deal. If there's businesses that have similar words and kind of some kind of relevancy, Google will throw the 3-pack out there. The more specific you get in your search and the more these other ones kind of don't fit it, you start to lean towards more of getting that knowledge panel shown.
Okay.
So
that makes sense. So we are talking, hypothetically about landscape company. Yeah. So let's say, again, we'll just pick a city like Denver, and you're a landscaper, and how you're attending to your GMB,
sure,
and what your overall strategy is. So on some level, the first 200 words should be written pretty naturally. I mean, really, the whole thing should be written naturally, right?
Yep.
But if you're gonna spam or cram stuff in there, and that's your strategy, which we don't necessarily recommend,
correct,
you for sure don't want to do it in that first 200 words, because if you do get the knowledge panel, it's going to look pretty wonky.
Yeah.
Right.
Yep.
So if you're a landscaper, and I guess my question to you is you're putting together a website, and let's say you're a landscape construction company, and so you have you've got different things that you specialize in, or you can actually look at what you sell the most of, and one of those things is retaining walls.
Okay.
But then you have things like trees, and then you have erosion control, and you may have various other elements within the landscape construction deal. I assume you'd want to guide your web design, obviously, in those silos of sorts.
Yes.
Okay. And then, but let's get to retaining walls, because that's something I had experience back when I was.
So you kind of sound like you know what you're talking about for landscaping.
Younger and stronger. But like in the retaining wall business, there's essentially, you have timber retaining walls, you have boulder walls,
okay.
you have slate, like different types of stone walls. You also have major retaining wall manufacturers such as Keystone and Anchor Block.
The blocks we all see.
Those various deals. So what would be your strategy for let's say attacking the retaining wall element of landscaping?
Yeah. So assuming you kind of weren't going after that before, right? Or you're weak in this?
Yeah. It's just I'm kind of
trying to beef it up,
looking at everything and just saying, okay, I want to try to generate more business in the retaining wall piece.
Yeah. So starting with just the GMB description area there, definitely look at your GMB description, and kind of like everything else with SEO. You have to do it on purpose, right? If you want to be found for retaining walls, if you're not mentioning retaining walls or things related, like good luck, right? Like how does Google even know that you do retaining walls if you're not telling them? They're not geniuses. So I'll go through a couple ways to tell them this real quick, but starting in the home base here for this GMB description for what we're talking about is make sure you're talking about retaining walls. And you threw out like keystone, boulder walls, different types of retaining walls too, right? I would say it's not enough to just, and if you can, maybe if you really are kind of giving an effort, let's get into retaining walls here, guys, or let everybody know we're doing retaining walls. If you can be in that first 200 characters just for the visual, awesome. But worst case scenario, you just somewhere in your 750 characters mention retaining walls, that you provide them, that you install them, whatever the terminology is there. But then also talk around that with these other contextual things, right? Boulder walls, the excavating, and just kind of different process. What's related to it? What's needed? What materials? What brands? If there's actual brands, like you said, Keystone, right? That's we say that as Keystone wall, but it's an actual brand manufacturer,
right?
So all these just supporting semantic and contextual references to retaining walls and boulder walls and things like that. So get that into your GMB. Find a way to cut something else out that's not going to hurt you. If you're at your max 750 characters, right? Cut something else out that you can, or try to clean up some of these, like use contractions, right? If you're writing on the cannot, switch it to can't. I mean, find a way to save some characters to inject what you need there. And then if you're really going all in on this, I wouldn't stop at your GMB description. I'd make sure I have products or services in my GMB, that I'm doing some posts about the retaining walls or types of retaining walls, taking photos, of a customer that you just installed a retaining wall and uploading that photo to your GMB. And then, of course, we're talking just GMB here, but a good rule of thumb for the GMB is there's a symbiotic relationship with your website. If you're also not talking about retaining walls on your website, that's going to be a problem there, right? Make sure you have a page at the very least about retaining walls. And then again, same concept here, or same concept applies here to your website, is the types of walls, the types of materials, the types of vendors, materials, or manufacturers, same kind of thing, but back to just the GMB is, man, if you're not writing retaining walls in your GMB description, then you're probably not going to get found for it. So
and I think we talked about this a couple episodes ago, where basically, if your business is going to pivot and you're adding a new line of something, right, or a new service, you've got to dig into your GMB and make sure you're showing up, adding that to this descriptor and keywords, and making sure that you're showing up for that business. And it's really, again, a great leverage if your competition is got poor reviews, for instance. And you've got, let's say, an existing business with a lot of great reviews, and you add that, you add the keyword and the various words into your GMB and you can penetrate that 3-pack,
Yep.
you could be in business like that.
That's
and
that
it's pretty slick.
review clout.
Yeah.
We talked about that, and I'll link to that one in the show notes for this episode as well. Because, that's very, very relevant is, what areas, if you're competing against your main digital competitors head to head, where aren't they showing up? Or, where's the competition weak? And you can jump in there with your reviews and just crush it. So, so I think that, do you have any more questions or kind of scenarios on the GMB description?
That makes a lot of sense in terms of a strategy and tying that in with your website. So if you are going to, again, make that pivot to adding, let's say you weren't doing retaining walls, well, then not only do you got to add it to your GMBs, then you need to start creating pages and whatnot.
Yeah, absolutely. And we left out reviews too, right? We always say get reviews. If you do a retaining wall for somebody, have them mention the retaining wall, the materials in that review. That's going to be golden as well. So it just... Again, we're talking about GMB descriptions here. Google said basically, and they removed it, but we'll just pretend it's stuck because it still holds true.
Right.
Your keywords in your GMB description are pretty relevant for what you want to show up for. Make sure you got your stuff in there, and then take the next step. If this is something that you really want to get business for, use the other GMB areas as well. Use your website, get reviews, mention it. Don't just stop with the GMB description. So. All right, so hopefully that helps you guys and gals out. Let's get into our 5-star review of the week. If you haven't left us a review yet, we would love to hear from you. As you guys and gals know, if you've been listening for a while, I seriously can't talk today. This is ridiculous. We read a review on each episode. This week we have one here from funny_looking.
Nice.
Which is a great username. Very helpful. One of the best sources of actionable info that I can use for my website and social media marketing. Nice people who genuinely want to help small business people. Thanks very much, and keep them coming. Thank you, Funny Looking. We do want to help people genuinely. That's why we started the show. Not for fame and fortune. Not that we're not wanting fame and fortune either.
Yeah, sure.
But really just to get it out there and help everybody, because there's a ton of stuff here. SEO can be such a mystery for people if they don't know about it. And we're glad you feel that way, and hope everybody else does too. If you haven't left us a review, localseotactics.com, go down, bottom left corner, click on reviews, whether it be iTunes, Google, Facebook, whatever your platform of choice. We love them all, and it's just great feedback to let us know we're on the right track. So that about does it for this episode. Anything else you want to throw in?
Yeah, if you have any questions, you got a couple options. You want to talk about how people can give us
localseotactics.com /questions, or again, go down to the footer in the bottom. We got all kinds of links in the footer. If you haven't noticed, everything's down there. There's a link for Ask a Question. You can submit it there if you don't want to talk. I know we were talking earlier to leave the voice recording. If you're not comfortable with that, you can just type it in there too. We'll still use it on the show. Obviously, we want to incorporate multimedia, but hey, if you got a question and you don't want to record it, throw it on there. Either we'll email you back personally and kind of get into it, or if we can use it on the show, we'll do that as well if it's good for everybody. But it doesn't have, I guess I should frame it up for what you're asking too. This doesn't have to be just like a show type question. If you just want to reach out to us for help, or problem solving even to that degree, we do have this show, but we also have the agency, Intrix, where we do SEO for clients. So if you're stuck somewhere, if you need to call us in, have us collaborate on a project, or just work for you directly if you're an actual service business and not an agency out there, we're here to help. So just reach out to us, localseotactics.com. All right, that does it for this episode. Thanks for tuning in, everybody, and we'll catch you next time.
Bye now.